so happy to finally be back hosting the Jacob Buer Show. Uh, I think the last podcast was in May, and we're recording this just a couple of days before the 4th of July in 2026. And today I have the pleasure, truly a pleasure. I was jamming out to music this morning from them, AC/DC. Truly a pleasure to have on Simon Wright. How are you doing today?
Fine, Jacob. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Cool.
Well, I gotta ask, how does somebody from Manchester get involved with drumming at such a young age?
Um, I just, I guess it was just boredom. I mean, there wasn't, there was football and stuff, but I started noticing drummers on the TV, and there was a program in England every week called Top of the Pops, and there were a whole bunch of different kinds of drummers on there, pop drummers and all sorts. So I just kept noticing them. I thought that was cool. I wouldn't mind having a go at that, you know. So I started banging around, got some knitting needles, and just started like that, and it ended up with me getting a drum kit at the house. And thankfully, we had no neighbors probably for about 6, 7 years. So I could play in the back bedroom. And I don't know, I just enjoyed it. And I kind of felt myself getting an aptitude for it. I could feel that I was getting some of the parts. I was playing along to records, and I was starting to understand how drummers put things together, and where the fills usually are and that kind of thing. So I really started to enjoy it, and it was just happenstance. I got in a band that had a record deal, and then that was in Manchester, and then I moved down to London, and in a nutshell, I got a big, you know, amazing international gig. So that's how that worked.
Wow, amazing to hear. And then, of course, at such a young age, you joined AC/DC, 19, 20 years old. I'm 21, and sometimes when I do podcasts, they blow me away. I couldn't imagine being part of AC/DC at such a young age. What did that feel like to you? What was your first memory, obviously working on albums and drumming, but also being in front of hundreds of thousands of people in new places around the world? What was that experience like?
Well, I was very young, yeah, but they made me feel very sort of comfortable. They brought me into kind of the small family there, and the singer Brian was from Newcastle, so he had a thousand jokes every half an hour, so that was made things a lot of fun. There's some good laughs and stuff. But I really didn't think about it. My main thought and my whole process was to play the shows as best that I could and learn the songs and stuff. The drumming's not that complicated, but you have to have a certain amount of stamina, and power and get up and go, which was something that I always kept an eye on. I didn't just go out and get completely hammered every night. It was, a case of being physically fit to do the shows. And it was, when you're playing 4 nights at Madison Square Garden, you're just like, whoa, your mother and your father's there, and everyone's so proud of you and stuff like that. I don't know. I just tried not to let it all overwhelm me and just do my job. Yeah.
And, something that I feel like I've never asked actually guests that have come on the show, which I've interviewed a couple different musicians from different backgrounds, different genres, is what happens 30 seconds, 1 minute, when you're lined up, you're ready to go, the opening act is getting off the stage, you're about to get on the stage. Obviously, you've been with a couple different bands now where you were probably the final act of the night. So, what is it like counting down from a minute? And obviously, you're the drummer, so you don't have to walk as far as the lead singer. But what's it like being back there and then going out and hearing people who you'll never meet yell? What's
Yeah.
that like?
Yeah. I just kind of like be quiet and just try and concentrate a little bit, and just gather my thoughts. Because before that, you're having a laugh with the lads in the dressing room, or you're taking the piss out of somebody on the way to the stage or something. You're having a laugh with the road crew. But when it gets down to the final minutes or so, I like to be quiet and just focused and stuff. So that's usually different people have different ways of dealing with it. They like to jump around and have a good laugh, and they're still jumping around, and then boom, they're on the stage and away they go. But I like to kind of, I guess I'm kind of saving my energy, getting ready and just, and then when I hit it, I hit it, you know.
Wow. And, I always like asking these questions because every answer is different. But what's maybe the craziest fan experience you've had on top of the normal stuff? Because, I can put one plus one together on that. But maybe is there a time where somebody by accident snuck their way onto an airplane or something like that? Any crazy story like that?
Nothing really crazy comes to mind. I mean, we did used to fly a lot around America doing the tours, um, and we'd pretty much fly commercial. Like I said, we'd be up the front, doing in the business end of the plane. Um, but no, it was just sometimes people would come up and bring their families and stuff, and someone would notice one of us, and we'd all be more than happy to say hello and give out an autograph and a picture and take a picture and just why not? They love your music. I was still the new guy, but they were interested in me as well, so that was cool. It was just a really good thing.
So 1985, when you're with AC/DC, you're flying business class on commercial airlines.
Yes, on a couple of occasions we had our own uh, smaller jet, which was nice. But then you have to deal with the flight crew, and they all wanting, pictures and signatures and stuff. But it's not a big deal. It's all cool, you know. Yeah,
Wow. Well,
I always had that way of looking at things with people that come up to you and they like your drumming, they like the music, what you're doing. Why not? Hey, how you doing? Cool, nice to meet you. That kind of thing. It doesn't take much, you know.
well, I can say that you're a real one, and I think most of the people I've interviewed in the music world are pretty solid. So great to hear.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And that kind of leads me into my next question because we're talking about so much rock right now. Obviously, you've been able to be part of so many different bands and stuff. You've done more stuff in the metal, the rock. You kind of have that cross experience with both. And where do you see metal and rock going as a whole? Because it feels like, when you look at it, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, I had Rudy Zarzo on, who was part of Quiet Riot, UFO. When you look at it, it almost feels like there is no new rock bands coming out with Gen Z or millennials. And gosh, I don't even know what the generation is behind me. I'm 21 now as we're recording this, but I'm
Yeah.
curious what your thought is.
Well, it's difficult to try and I don't really take you know not take notice, but I haven't really seen anything that kind of like blows my mind. I mean, and a lot of these bands like you just mentioned, we're all getting older now, so it was a fantastic those fantastic years. Your UFOs, Black Sabbath, Van Halen's, all that. It was just you never heard anything like that before. But a lot of the stuff that I do get to have a quick look at, is it's kind of the same as what's gone on already. So we need someone who can come along and maybe break the mold a little bit. And there's some fantastic musicians out there. I'm not dogging on anybody. I just haven't really heard it, you know. And great songwriters too, But I tend to just go back with this kind of with the stuff that I trust and I've heard before and stuff and all, and just jam on that in the car or in the garden or whatever, and have that going on. So yeah, I'm still waiting to hear something that blows my mind. Like the first time I heard Van Halen on, I'd never really heard anything like that before. You know, um, you know, this thing with Rush is pretty cool to watch. That girl playing drums for them, and Annika. She's amazing. Yeah. And it's good to hear those songs again. Never thought we'd hear them live again.
Definitely. And you kind of mentioned with the younger people there that, it feels like not everybody's pursuing that. I actually interviewed my buddy's band called Sunny and the Stars. Shout out to Nathan Adamson. And he loves rock music. And, it's very rare to see people in college have bands and pursue Guns N' Roses covers or AC/DC covers or the Rolling Stones, or Metallica or Journey. And I think hopefully Gen Z can maybe take some inspiration and go farther in that direction.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's not easy out there doing what would if you're going to do something like that anyway. It's a lot of toil and struggle for, frankly, not enough financing going on. So, so that's another aspect to the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, many people know you with your time for AC/DC, but you obviously have played stints with other bands. What was it like playing with Ronnie? And would you say that was a blast part of your career? One of my fans actually had a question. I always like to tell a couple people. I don't tell the world who I'm having on my show until it's public, but one of my listeners wanted me to ask that.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, I never thought I would play drums for Ronnie James Dio. I'd seen him in Rainbow in 1976. I went to the show in the Manchester Apollo, hit him on the foot when I was up the front there. And the next thing, my wife at the time was talking to his wife and manager Wendy, and we kind of all worked it out that I could go down and have a play. And Vinny didn't want to be there for some reason or other. I can't remember. And I ended up in the band with him, in his band. And he's just an all-round amazing man. He's funny. He's got that New York sense of humor. He's smart. He's bright. He's caring. With all of his musicians and stuff. He's just an amazing person to be around. I ended up living at his house. I got divorced and stuff, and lived with him for a few people had lived there as well. Um, but it was just great. We ended up doing a lot of work that wasn't music related together, like construction in the back there, and so we got to know each other very well. And I still miss him right now. I mean, it's like he's a big friend. So there were good times. There were also some bad times. We get angry and pissed off at shit like we all do. But that's just the way things go. But the majority was great times. Yeah,
Damn
yeah.
straight to that. We all have those friends. If you don't have one or two of those friends in your life you're getting pissed off with all the time, you're not living life.
Oh, they're not being real, are they? You know,
Yeah.
that's the thing. There's a lot to get pissed off at that we don't, but now and again it just boils out. So it comes out like that.
And that's another thing I have a question about. Obviously, when you're touring in the studio, under contract with different things throughout your career, uh, and I'm just curious, what's it like having to work or finish projects? I don't want you to name drop anybody, but what's it ever like if you're mid-project or mid-tour or mid-album and there's a completely different turn of course, but you still have 10 concerts left or, six more songs to put on the album? What's it like having to manage those things? And what advice would you give?
The only incident like that where something had happened and it was a bit of a worry was it happened to myself. We were in Europe and I was playing with UFO with Michael Schenker and Phil Morgan, pretty much the whole original band except me. And we had about 4 shows left, and we were up in Norway in the snow, and the bus stopped, and we all got out to have a pee for some reason. Oh, somebody was probably in the toilet in the bathroom. And I'm doing my business, and all of a sudden I get this sensation down below here, right? And it was I didn't know what it was, but it turned out it was a hernia that had like ruptured, right? And we had 4 shows left, so I couldn't do anything. I mean, I didn't know what it was. It felt weird, but we were in, I saw a doctor quickly the next day in the afternoon before the show, and he surmised it was a hernia that had ruptured or something. But we had the three shows left, so I just carried on. I had no choice. I mean, what can I do? There were three in a row. You couldn't get another drummer in that quick. So that
And
was some.
you answered my question because I was going to ask, obviously, depending on the tour, where you're at, what if you just wouldn't have shown up? Would they just not have had a drummer that night if, you were that sick or something?
Well, we were all staying in the same hotel, so they would have found me. I mean, I couldn't just run away, and I wouldn't do that anyway because they're my mates. So it was something that we all. I told them what happened. We were on the bus, and you know, I think Phil the singer was joking. So you're gonna die tonight or what? And I'm like, well, I don't know, Phil. Maybe. So we were all in it together, and we saw the doctor, and we just plowed on. And when I got home a couple of days later, I went to see the doctor.
Wow. And one last question I have is who is a singer or a band? Obviously, it feels like there's a lot more singers this day, which look, talent is talent all over the place. There's great bands, there's great singers, there's great solo acts, there's great duo acts, there's great duets, you name it. But maybe what's something post 2000s, maybe even late 2010s? Um, what's maybe a band or a singer that you've really fallen in love with maybe their voice or their albums or their live performances?
Well, there are some singers out there who do a lot of work for record companies that I kind of do work for sometimes. And there's a singer who is a very good singer. Um, his name is Ronnie Romero, and he's got an amazing voice. And I actually did a project with the guitar player from Dio, Craig Goldie, and on bass we had Rudy Sarzo. And Craig had found this singer called Diego Valdez, and he was another one that had a monstrous voice. Same kind of power, same kind of range as Ronnie. You know, and when you find someone like that, it's a bit of a rarity. And we did an album with him that was called Dream Child. And what year was that? I can't remember what year that was. It was a while ago now. But yeah, I mean, there's some fantastic singers out there, really good. We're working with a singer coming up, hopefully, called Robin McCauley, who was used to sing for Michael Schenker, MSG. And he's another great, great singer. So, it's they're out there. They're still out there.
Definitely. I mean, we need more, and obviously labels kind of do this, but we need more, kind of like how venture capital can help tech companies. We need more venture capital, but in the entertainment space. Because with AI, we still got to have some sort of real human interaction with podcast or radio or bands or music, you name it.
Well, I don't think it's AI related. I think it's to do with this free streaming. People can go on there and just watch stuff without buying it. And when I was growing up, and I'm not the only one, you had to buy. You heard a little bit on the radio, but that would entice you to go get the album. So you go to the store, you buy the album physically. So pretty much with pound sterling. It's but on here it's all free. I mean, that's the difference. So record companies, they're not going to shell out a whole boatload of money. Sometimes they are. They're making things work with not like the budgets they used to shell out, but there are some projects in the works for. There's another company that I work for called Cleopatra Records. There's a whole bunch of us musicians who play on different like kind of tribute albums and stuff to different people, different bands, and because as well as that, unfortunately, there's not a lot of people who are doing a lot of shows and touring as much as it used to be. Because of the way the economy is. People haven't got the money. It's I don't know. I don't know when it's going to change, but I hope it does soon.
Amen. And Live Nation might have a little bit to do with that. But what do we both know, right? Or you know more than me. But yeah. Well,
Next,
I appreciate having you on the show, Simon.
yeah,
Where do you think, or what piece of advice would you leave young people with who have no idea where to start if they are tired of hearing pop every day? What would you tell them to get involved into listening to metal music or, you know, older style rock?
yeah, it's you should definitely check it out. I mean, there's a lot of in heavy rock. There's a lot of melody. There's a lot of power. There's a lot of blood, guts, and glory, and all the rest of it. And you know, there's so many different kind of genres in pop music, and there are in heavy rock and metal and stuff as well. There's different ways of doing it and stuff. And if I was always interested in listening to a wide range of stuff, So if you're out there, you should definitely try out something new. You know, that I don't know if that's the right kind of advice you were asking me for, but that's all I can think.
Hey, if I tell my friends to listen to a peace song and they only like Taylor Swift or
Yeah,
they only like, Blake Shelton,
yeah,
both of them are great artists in
yeah,
different genres, of course.
yeah,
They're gonna say, I don't care what you have to say, you're the same age as me. So having the AC/DC drummer say it, that might be a different story. You might get some people over the finish line who are young listening to this, and they might say, wow, I'm gonna
yeah.
listen to
You're,
rock.
you're right. I mean, I remember when I was of that age and stuff, and there was some poppier stuff that I listened to that I won't say because it sounds stupid, but you can't help but hear it because it was around. There was a lot of it around. But it was always good to branch out. I mean, if you want to check something out different, go listen to Black Sabbath, or UFO, or Dio. There's some amazing, amazing stuff going on there.
Or just turn on Thunderstruck or Hell's Bell or
Yeah,
any of that.
yeah. And if you
Bon
want,
Jovi.
yeah, that's some good crossover there. With the pop and the rock and stuff. Yeah, with Bon Jovi. But another good thing is a good radio station. It's on Sirius. Is Eddie Trunk, his show, because he does really dive deep in the metal. His favorite band is UFO. He's a great, great guy. Um, and that is a great program to listen to if you're not too sure and you haven't heard much before.
Certainly. Yeah, no, definitely agree with you. Well, Simon, thank you so much for coming on. And I'll close
Sure.
with a quick little question. What's your favorite grunge band?
Uh,
I know I just did a 180 on you, so my apology, but I'm just curious.
oh, I liked Alice in Chains. I thought, is that a grunge band? I think
You
it
could
is.
say so, yeah. They're from the same area.
Yeah, Alice was great. I loved him.
Excellent.
No, Alice and Soundgarden were good. I thought they were a nice crossover. They were really dark, more along the lines of trying to be not try. I shouldn't say trying to be. That's completely wrong. But they had a. You could tell they had a love for Black Sabbath. Put it that way. I think, and they were just brilliant musicians. All of them. Yeah, Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, great. There's others too. I'd listen to.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Sure, Jacob. My pleasure. All the best.